A very common practice among intelligence agencies affiliated with the Soviet Union during the Cold War was to have specific hotels in the capitals that were used primarily by foreign visitors and even more so foreign officials. Those hotels were, unsurprisingly, used to spy on their guests. In Spy Spots episode 22, we've actually seen this for the capital of Lithuania, Vilnius, with Hotel Gintaras, nowadays Panorama Hotel, which was backed by the KGB. And today we have a similar case, but going way beyond the Cold War, from the capital of Romania, Bucharest. Welcome to Spy Spots. In Spy Spots episode 18, we talked about the Cold War Romanian spy agency headquarters here. The former Central Committee of the Communist Party here. The Revolution Square, along with the Memorial of Rebirth that marked the end of communism in Romania, that was in 1989. And later on in Spy Spots episode 21, we talked about the former US Embassy in Romania and some of the espionage activities that took place there. This is where that US Embassy was, and literally within walking distance from all of those Cold War spy sites, we have our today's Spy Spot. This magnificent building that has a history going back all the way to 1914. The Athénée Palace, as it was originally named, was built from 1912 to 1914, and it was the first building to use reinforced concrete in Bucharest. Since then, it has almost always been in the center of geopolitical developments as a site for clandestine meetings and intelligence collection. One of the first such references came from Cyrus Leo Sulzberger II, a correspondent for the New York Times during the 1940s and 50s. And it's no surprise that during the Second World War, this was the secret home of Britain's spies, as well as German Gestapo spies. In the 1942 book, King Carol, Hitler and Lupescu, we read, for instance, I took up residence in the Athénée Palace Hotel, and later in the morning after my arrival, I took stock of this most notorious caravan SRI in all Europe. It was exciting to realize that here I was in the meeting place of continental spies, political conspirators, adventurers, concession hunters, and financial manipulators. From the Time magazine, we also find this 1942 article that provides even more spy stories that took place there. For example, the Countess checked in at the Athénée Palace the day Paris fell. She found the hotel swarming with spies of every intelligence service in the world, diplomats and military attachés of great and little powers, British and French oilmen on their way out, and German and Italian oilmen on their way in, Gestapo agents and TOVRA agents and TOGPU agents, or men who were, or at least said to be, agents. Or later on in the same article, there was also of how Edith von Kohler, she lived at the Athénée Palace, but never gave people more than a glimpse as she whisked across the lobby or drove down the Calais Victoria in her long grey Mercedes. Rumors said that she was Himmler's sister and a modern Mata Hari, says the Countess Waldeck. Mata Hari and her sisters were dumbbells in an era where bare skin was supposed to make generals lose their heads. Frau von Kohler was not Hitler's spy, but a Hitler propagandist, and to make friends and influence people, as the Countess authoritatively, is a propagandist business. And the hotel maintains all this luxury and imposing atmosphere to this day, despite the numerous renovations and changes. We say that because in April of 1944, the United States bombed it, destroying most of what we read in those historical publications. However, a year later, in 1945 it was remodeled, more modern, but maintaining many of those historical characteristics that made it so unique. After the end of the Second World War and the rise of communism in Romania, the hotel was nationalized by the Communist Party, and it's when the country's new spy agency, Securitate, learning from the practice of the Soviet KGB, decided to use it as a surveillance hub for any important foreigners traveling to Romania. So they bagged every hotel room, set up observation posts, and much of that history can even be found in the lobby of the hotel today. This fun facts plate says, Athénée Palace was previously home to both British spies and Gestapo, and it includes the Easterman's quote that we shared previously, and continues that, in 1948, the hotel was nationalized by the new communist government, who famously bagged every room, tapped every phone, and every payphone within half-a-mile radius, and stuffed the entire hotel with informers. And then we have a quote by Dan Halpern saying, "The hotel's general director was an undercover colonel in the Securitate's Counter-Espionage Directorate. The hotel's deputy director was a colonel in the DIE, the Romanian External Intelligence Organization. The doorman did surveillance. The housekeeping staff photographed all documents in the guest rooms. The prostitutes in the lobby and the bar, and in the nightclub, reported directly to their employers. The free-speaking bon vivant and the Romanian intellectuals hanging around the café, not to mention a number of the guests, had been planted. And in the same spot in the hotel's lobby, you can also find this rare coin, dating back to the 1960s, which was given to key individuals. To this day, almost every single high-profile individual you can think of from the geopolitical world has likely stayed in this hotel at some point, and naturally, this also attracts many people from the espionage world too. Now, after the revolution of 1989, the hotel was heavily damaged and closed until 1994, when, thanks to the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, it was renovated between 1995 and 1997, and eventually reopened under Hilton International. However, from December 31st, 2022, it became part of the Intercontinental Hotels, and as of 2023 is known as the Intercontinental Athénée Palace Bucharest. You might be thinking that with all that history, intrigue and spying, people would avoid doing such things in the post-Cold War era, but that's far from true. As we read in Haaretz, at the beginning of April 2016, 2 employees of the Israeli private intelligence firm Black Cube were arrested in a raid on the Bucharest Marriott by members of Romania's Directorate for Investigating Organized Crime and Terrorism. So let's continue, and it will make sense in a bit. The two, David Geklowicz and Ron Weiner, were caught with computers used hours prior to hack into the computers of family members and other confidants of Romania's Laura Codruta Kövesi, then a state prosecutor heading the National Anti-Corruption Directorate, DNA, charged with leading the country's anti-corruption efforts. Kövesi was leading a number of high-profile investigations into senior Romanian officials, including people close to the president. Black Cube was hired to find damaging evidence against her. The hack took place weeks before a decision was made on whether to appoint Kövesi for another term, and it was quickly revealed that she was also investigating a former senior official from Romania's intelligence service. His name is Daniel Dragomir, and he is supposedly the man who commissioned the job from Black Cube, whose CEO, Dan Zorella, is a dual Romanian-Israeli citizen who was also a suspect. And here is a link analysis diagram that Haaretz did, which shows this intertwined network of private intelligence with the Israeli Mossad and Romania's SRI, which is quite representative of how modern espionage works. And where did they meet? In Athénée Palace's English bar, as we read in Haaretz. Zorella recalls for the officers his first meeting with the Romanians. We flew to Bucharest on February 1st, 2016, and arrived at the Sheraton. Daniel was very careful with how he communicated with us, as is common in the world of intelligence. For example, he used an app called Silent Phone and a message service called Wicker. He used the username JohnDoe500 and wrote to me, "Meet me at the Hilton, at the English bar." He said, "You'll recognize me. I'll have an apple and a newspaper on my table." And that's indeed how we identified him when we arrived. And further down we also read, "On March 16, Zorella said he arrived in Bucharest again for another meeting with Dracomir at the English bar. This time, Dracomir took him to a safe house in a residential part of the Romanian capital." And today, Athénée Palace remains as important as it was decades ago in the intelligence world. For example, the 2019 welcome reception for the EU health leadership delegates was held at the hotel's Le Diplomat ballroom. The Royal Gala for the launch of the Romanian branch of the Duke of Edinburgh's International Award also took place at the hotel. Romania's Ministry of Economy, Trade and Business Environment organized a conference at the hotel discussing the Lisbon strategy and Romania's business environment. In the period of 2010 to 2011, the annual general meetings of the American Chamber of Commerce were also taking place in this hotel. Or in 2018, the hotel hosted parts of the DGINS conference and many more events that, apart from government officials, they also attract intelligence professionals to either spy on those officials or occasionally try to recruit them as their agents. So if the road leads you to Bucharest and you are interested in intelligence history, we highly recommend you checking out this hotel, and who knows, you might stumble across some unexpected espionage activity. Since in the world of spies, hotels remain as crucial as they've always been, and a clear reminder that nothing is as it seems.